Hey guys, Scott here, and I think I'm finally done with this whole formula business. I can say this one is not actually an experiment. This one I actually put thought into, and the numbers make a lot more sense. The formula makes a lot more sense, so if there's anyone to take as my final opinion, it's this video. Everything else has just been sort of trying to figure stuff out. I think I have a much clearer system. I made a video about the formula I used, and feel free to copy this whole formula too if you want. If you think it is somewhat accurate, I put a link to the spreadsheet below, so you can just tinker with that however you want. But I already thought about all these values, so instead of just going along and making them up as I go, like I did in the other videos, I thought about these, and I think they are a lot less out of the blue and more thought given to them. But at the end of the day, this is always going to be just an opinion. Every tier list or ranking or whatever the hell you're going to do, it's always an opinion. None of them are ever right or wrong. Really, the only definite is, like, Nurse is always going to be the best. That's, like, the only objective one. But other than that, I mean, you could argue basically anything. So they're just opinions. Relax. Don't attack everybody because you disagree. And be civil, yeah? That is the main reason I don't like doing these, because everyone just starts hating each other for no reason. People like arguing about other people's opinions. I don't get it. All right, so let's go over a example of what, you know, a low and a high value is for each of these categories, so they make a lot of sense. So for map control, a low example would be like the Shape. The Shape has, I think, the worst map control in the game. He has no teleportation. He has no increased movement speed ability. He's just a killer that simply has to run from place to place. And in fact, he has a detriment at the beginning of the match where he's vastly slower as well. So I think he would have the worst map control in the game. Even killers like Clown at least start off at full speed, so they're slightly higher than the Shape. But generally, like a 4 or a 5 is going to be a killer that just simply has normal movement speed, and they don't really do much, but they might have like a tool or something like that to slow the game down in some way, so it's not absolutely nothing. But generally, the killers that have nothing are like Shape and the Clown and Ghostface. Like, they just simply have to walk to the other side of the map, and that's about it. An example of a high map control would be Billy, obviously, because he can get everywhere in very little time. Freddy can teleport across the map. And then you got differing levels of good. Spirit can go pretty fast if she needs to get to a certain area in time. Obviously, Nurse teleporting. Demogorgon can teleport across the map. So, like, you know, it kind of averages out there. Like, it's meant to be in such a way that there will never be a 1 and there will never be a 10. Well, there are a couple examples of 10s, but it's very hard to get to that. I wanted the extremes to be more extreme, so the scale ranged more from 1 to 10 and not from like 3 to 7, which a lot of it did. So that's map control. Downing potential, still basically the same category, how quickly the killer can down an individual survivor. High example, again, of course, Nurse and Spirit. They're the only 10s in my opinion. Pretty much doesn't matter how good the survivors are. If you are good at those killers, you can down people in seconds pretty much every single time. And then examples of like bad at that would be, I think Legion is the lowest, because Legion doesn't have anything to actually down people. He can injure people really well, but he can't sneak up on people. There's nothing in Legion's kit that allows them to hasten a chase really in any way. You could argue that you could hit them once and then cancel your power, but then they can just turn around and you're stunned for 4 seconds. Legion is probably the bottom of the lethality tier. But there's no one at 3 or below, because every killer can still down somebody. You can still moonwalk with a no power. You can still do things to down people, so no one is really a 1. For snowball potential, which is a new category added, which is extremely important, and a good example would be like Oni and Huntress and Nurse. Those are killers that can chain downs together extremely fast. And a bad example would be, again, Clown. And what other examples would be not great? Wraith, too. Just has to just hit people. Wraith is not even super low. He's not as low as, like, Clown, because at least a lot of the time people will be injured against Wraith, and you can potentially pick people off a bit quicker. So that's why a lot of these values end up averaging out a bit higher than you would think. It's because they have other things going for them that it's not super black and white. Map versatility. This is, how dependent they are on maps. Good example of a killer that doesn't care about the map is like Freddy. Freddy's good on basically every single map. And an example of a killer who's very map dependent is like Huntress. Because, she needs to be able to throw her hatchets at things. That being said, let's go over the actual numbers I chose for these all these lads and lasses. 5 for map control for Trapper. Reason it's not lower is because although he has nothing to get places, he can create an area of the map and literally control it. So although that takes a lot of time and you can lose gens just simply setting traps, once everything's actually done, that bumps it up from like a 3, 4 to a 5, in my opinion, because he can actually make a section of the map pretty well controlled. But there's a lot of setup time. Survivors can see the traps. They can dismantle the traps or at least disable them. They can see them with, maps and things like that. So it's not foolproof, but it's not terrible either. His downing potential, I feel like, is about the same. Getting people in traps across the map, they'll get out before you get there. But if you corral people into a correct trap, it's a pretty instantly one chase. So, you know what? I think I'm actually going to change that to a 6. I don't know. It's like 5 or 6. That one is kind of sketchy. For snowball potential, I would say it's actually decently high. You get one person in a trap, someone comes to save, they run into another trap, suddenly you got 2 people in traps, you down one, another guy just gets out as you're going. Trapper can snowball pretty well, especially if you get someone in the basement or something like that, he can snowball pretty damn well. Map versatility, he's pretty average on most maps. He has really bad maps like Larry's in the game, really good maps with foliage and shit, like, I don't know, like a lot of Yumoka's maps. It's very easy to hide traps and stuff like that. He can, trap all the main structures and stuff like that, so I'd say he's a bit average. He's got some pretty bad maps, like Rotten Fields, Blood Lodge even. I guess Blood Lodge is not as bad. Really, like, big, wide open maps are really bad for him, and maps with little foliage or things to hide are not great. But for the most part, he's pretty average. He can do well on a lot of maps, and he's not super good on a lot of maps. The problem is the maps that he's bad on, he's really bad on. Like, I don't know. Try playing, like, on, like, The Game or Hawkins or something like that. Yeah, there's, like, the cute drop-down ones you can do and stuff like that. But for the most part, every single trap you have is visible, and it's kind of a bitch. So it's not that great. However, his add-on strength is quite good. And I changed this whole system. If you didn't watch the video on the changes I made, it's just simply a modifier that adds a bonus based on how strong their strongest add-ons are. So his best add-ons are very good. Iridescent Stone's super fucking good. The bags, the darkened traps, they're all very good. He's got some really good add-ons, and they bump up his score quite a bit. So his final score is basically a 6.87. Hillbilly. I'm going to go through these a lot faster because I already made an hour-long video, and I'm not doing that again. I don't have it in me. I'm sorry. Map control, Hillbilly. Obviously, 9. He can go anywhere he wants. The overheating mechanic doesn't really matter very much. Downing potential, it's not amazing, but he does have a one-shot that's on demand pretty much whenever he wants. However, he still has to deal with windows and pallets and stuff like that. However, once you leave those loops, he becomes extremely deadly, and with the right add-ons, he's even deadly in those loops. And a proper ability that knows how to curve at the right time is very scary, even inside the loops as well. So, downing potential is pretty good, but not perfect. Snowball potential, however, is quite good because he can down someone, see them in infectious fright, or with barbecue or anything, and get there and pressure those people immediately. He can snowball very fast due to his ability to get places fast and down people fast. His map versatility, it's a bit of a mixed bag. He's got some really bad maps, but overall, he can do well on most maps. He can get places, so big maps are not a big issue. It's just the small, cramped maps and indoor maps that are a huge detriment to his power. Add-on strength, if it was last patch, it would be like a 9 or a 10, because carburetor tuning guide and, Crack Billy is absolutely insane. Insta-saw Billy is insane, but they nerfed a lot of that stuff, and now his add-ons are not that amazing anymore, which is fine, because his add-ons were kind of ridiculous. So his add-ons are really nothing amazing anymore. However, they are buffing some of them. I know Mother's Helpers and Low Pro Chains are getting a bit of a change, so this number might bump up to a 5 or something like that, but as for now, final score 8.27, which is pretty damn good. Next, Wraith, map control, 5. This is assuming he has Windstorm. I know you shouldn't assume they have add-ons, but I just literally assume Windstorm. Wraith has one add-on slot, because the other one is just, you have to have a Windstorm, otherwise he's absolute garbage, so I'm including that. With the Windstorm, he can walk around a bit faster, so he's not quite a 4, he's, I'd say, up to a 5, because he can get places a bit faster. And people have to be a bit more scared of where he is. His downing potential is not amazing. His first hit is very good. His second hit is very weak. Depending on how you play, even if you do the hit and run play style, a smart player will get healed at a pallet or something like that, or use a medkit at a pallet. If you just keep healing against that in a safe area, the Wraith can't really do anything if he's playing that play style. Yeah, eventually you run out of resources, but it's going to take the Wraith a long, long time to get rid of all that stuff. Snowball potential is also quite average. Like I said, the only reason he has higher than like a 4 in snowball potential is because he does typically leave a lot of people injured, and there is a chance he can down someone and then occasionally sneak up on someone else, and they're both injured, so now you got 2 people down. That is a situation that's not unrealistic, so it's possible. Map versatility, he's pretty good on almost every map. Blood Lodge, Rotten Fields, he's shit. Any map that's wide open, he's not really good on, but most maps you can do pretty well with Wraith. The maps don't affect him very much. Add-on strength, his Silent Bell is extremely good. Purple Windstorms are super good. Spirit Warrior is good. He's got a lot of pretty damn good add-ons, so I'd say 7 is good. They're not incredible. They're not super game-changing. I'd say the Silent Bell is probably the craziest one he's got, but it's nothing like, Iridescent Head or Tombstone or anything like that. So I think a 7 is fair. Final score, 6.55. Next, Nurse. Map Control is an 8. It would have been a 10 prior to her nerf, but now she's got to use some of her charges, and she's got to wait a couple seconds before she can teleport again. So it's not perfect anymore, but she can still teleport basically anywhere whenever she wants. It's pretty damn good. Downing potential is going to be one of the few 10s that I give out because a good nurse is going to down any survivor in 10 seconds almost every single time. Snowball potential, again, because she can down people so fast, you throw on Infectious Fright, anyone's going to go down in an additional 10 seconds. A nurse can win a game in 30 seconds flat if they're nearby. Map versatility, really the only bad maps she has are like the very clustered indoor maps. I think like Hawkins is annoying, Larry's is annoying, things like that. But for the most part, she can do pretty much as well as she wants on any map. However, her add-ons are not very impactful at all. So I gave her a 4 there. Her add-ons don't do much anymore. They used to be a 9 or a 10 with the multiple blinks, but they nerfed her add-ons quite a bit and they don't do very much anymore. Next, Shape. Worst map control in the game, in my opinion. He starts off extremely slow and then just has normal movement. And that's all he's got. So his map control is absolutely terrible. His downing potential is not too bad. Being able to sneak up someone while you're tier 2 and then going into tier 3 and whacking them once gives them very little chance to do anything about it unless they have Spine Chill or something like that. So it's actually pretty easy to quickly down people without them having a chance to react. But it's on a limited time. You can't always do it, and you have a limited amount of times that you actually can activate your power. Snowball potential, however, is quite high, as anyone can tell you. The Myers with Infectious Fright and extended tier 3 add-ons can down the whole team very, very fast. That's just because his tier 3 is a one-shot. He can start it up immediately. He can find 2 people on a gen and just to get a free down on one and then quickly down the other just with that. Myers can snowball very, very well. That is definitely one of his strongest points. In terms of map versatility, he's pretty decent. He can do pretty much as well as on any map. Pretty much like the farm maps he's not good on, and like Blood Lodge I'd say he's bad on. Those killers tend to be bad for stealth killers, but on every other map he can do pretty much just normally. His add-on strength is a 9 because the stalking add-ons are absolutely insane. Tombstone Piece is absolutely insane. It's the only add-on in the game that lets you instantly kill somebody from full health without any hook prerequisites or anything like that. That is insanely strong. I think Tombstone Piece is one of the strongest add-ons in the entire game. And even without that, his stalking add-ons are insanely good. You can go from 0 to full in like 2 seconds. It's pretty nuts. So his add-ons are pretty crazy. That gives him a final score of 6.52. Next will be the Hag. Her map control is a 6. It ranges from like a 4 to a 10, depending on how set up she is. That's why I kind of average it out to be like 6 or 7. Because at the start of the match, she is dog shit map pressure, and she has actually none, and she's slower than most killers, so it's really, really bad. However, once she spends some time setting things up, then she has a lot of map pressure because she can teleport large distances in a short amount of time, but it's contingent on survivors running through the traps. So it's not a guaranteed thing that she can get to a generator immediately if she needs. But however, once she sets up her web, she can have very good map control. So I tried to balance out the averages between the beginning stage where you got nothing and the end stage where you got a lot. Next, her downing potential is quite high. Hag can down even the best survivors in a relatively quick fashion, depending on her trap setup. I don't really think I have to go into it more than that. Snowball potential, again, same reason. You can have traps in really good areas, down somebody, someone else triggers your trap, you're immediately in a chase with 0 downtime after just having down someone, that guy is slugged, and you got multiple people being occupied. She can snowball very, very easily. Map versatility, again, she's also pretty good on almost every map. However, there are a couple maps like Rotten Fields that are just really, really bad for her. That whole middle area, you're not going to run over a trap in that giant open area. So big wide open maps, not super good for her, but she can still do well on most maps. Her add-ons are not very impactful at all anymore. They used to be almost required for like the setting speed, but they put that into her base kit, so her add-ons don't do that much, but overall she's still quite good. So that's a 7.77. Next will be Doctor. His map control is closer to a 4 because he simply has no movement abilities whatsoever. However, I bumped it up to a 5 because although he has no movement abilities, technically he can put people in madness for a couple seconds, and that will cause them to not be able to work on gens and reveal positions, which means you might chase them off generators. So it's not like he's got nothing. He does have some map control, actually. And just because he can't get places fast doesn't mean he's not impacting survivors that are not necessarily interacting with him at the moment. So he still has some semblance of map control, and it can be pretty annoying depending on your add-ons. His downing potential is actually surprisingly good. New Doctor, I feel like New Doctor is kind of underrated. He is extremely strong at ending chases. If you just have like an electrode on and you just keep shocking people out of loop, like you can't loop New Doctor. It's almost impossible. So his downing potential, in my opinion, is actually quite high, and I think he's a bit underrated with that. His snowball potential is not anything amazing. He can down somebody and use his shock to find other people to quickly chase. So he's got something going for him. He can chain some things together, but he's still got to hit them twice. Nothing too amazing there. His map versatility is pretty good. He can do well on basically every map in the game. Again, bigger maps, not super great. Less chance to get more people in your shock, things like that. But overall, he's pretty good on most maps. His add-on strength is quite good. Electrodes, very strong. Iridescent King, amazingly good. Even his status-affecting add-ons are all quite good, so I gave him an 8 there. Overall, a 7.2, which is pretty good. Huntress, map control, would be closer to a 3 or a 4 if she wasn't able to pressure people from anywhere on the map that she has vision to. So being able to throw a hatchet across the map is you're basically able to camp someone from 40 meters away if you're very accurate, which means you do have more map pressure than you think. However, it's not higher because she's still a slow killer with no movement ability, so I felt like a 5 was fair. Her downing potential is pretty damn good. Huntress can down even the best survivors because a lot of the times it's very hard to predict what she's going to do at a pallet. Sometimes she'll just run through it and just gets a hit because you thought she was going to ready a hatchet. And if she reads that correctly, you're going to go down. She can, ready things around loops, ready hatchets around loops and hit them just as she comes around the corner. She destroys shacks. She destroys most structures. Huntress is extremely good in chases. Her snowball potential, because of that, is quite good as well. She can down people very fast. And she has very little cooldown after using her ability. So if there's 2 people in the same area, she can boom, boom, down, move on within 5 seconds. So her snowball potential is very, very good. Huntress in the basement is terrifying. Map versatility, however, is garbage. She is, unlike half the maps in the game, she suffers quite a bit. She's not useless or anything, but there's a lot more restrictions placed on her ability. So that takes a heavy hit. Her map versatility is not good. Her add-on strength, however, is, I think, the only 10 that I will give out because Iridescent Head is the strongest add-on in Dead by Daylight, in my opinion. It is... I literally cannot lose with this thing. It's just stupid. I want it to be nerfed. It is ridiculously strong. It just simply lets you one-shot people with your hatchets. Yeah, you can only carry 1. But then you throw an infantry belt, and now you got 3 one-shots. You can down 75% of the team with one set of reloads. It's just ridiculous. So that gives her a 7.83. Next, Cannibal, map control, none. He just has no map control. He just has to walk around. However, he has no slow startup speed like Myers, so that's it. He has no map control, it's a 3. His downing potential is significantly better than it used to be, but it's still not incredible. A lot of the time, you still have to M1, despite the fact you can make your chainsaw go for a lot longer. As long as the survivor has a good window, it doesn't matter. You can't chainsaw around the entire loop, and you can't chainsaw through the window, so you still have to M1 a lot of the time. His downing potential is definitely better than it used to be, but it's not amazing. His snowball potential, however, is pretty nuts. You get someone on a hook with a Leatherface nearby, yeah, that's going to be a lot of trouble. Leatherface in the basement, still terrifying. He can end games very, very fast, provided people are in the same area, so the potential is there to end things, insanely fast. Map versatility, it's kind of average. On maps with lots of windows, he's not very good. Big wide open maps, he's not amazing, but for the most part, you can play Leatherface on mostly any map and still have reasonable levels of success. His add-on strength, however, it used to be a lot more important because having an Instasaw was pretty good because you can get right up on someone and down them very, very fast, even if they got to window. They toned down a lot of that stuff, though, but he still got some good add-ons now. Like, his Chili was modified to be significantly better. He's got some decent stuff now, so I think a 7 was fair. That leaves him at a 6.38. All right, next is Freddy. Sorry about the cut. There was a cat-related incident. Fucker. Freddy's map control is an 8. I mean, that one is kind of self-explanatory. He can teleport to any gen on the map with a fairly short cooldown. And the whole reason you'd want to go somewhere else is to protect gen. So his map control is, I think, second best right under Billy. He'd be able to teleport fairly quickly to any gen on the map is absolutely insane. His downing potential is pretty good. He can down people not necessarily fastly, but very consistently. He makes every loop unsafe with his traps. And that makes him decent at downing, but it's not exactly fast. It's just very consistent, which is still great. It's just you either have to use the pallet early and burn a lot of resources quickly, or you risk getting hit because his traps are going to slow you just like a clown would getting around the loop. So overall, his downing potential is pretty good. His snowball potential is not anything amazing. It's kind of good because he can down somebody and then teleport to a gen and then chase that person too while the first guy is slugged. So in that scenario, he can do it pretty well. But for the most part, he still has to just consistently hit survivors twice. Nothing he does can really speed that process up very much. For map versatility, he's one of the most universal killers in the game. He can do well on pretty much every map in the entire game. I can't think of a bad map for him other than maybe like... I mean, I still got to say big maps would screw him over. I know he can teleport, but he can only teleport once. So he can only pressure that one gen in the time of the cooldown. So it's not perfect, but nobody's perfect on every map, mostly because some of the maps are just terrible. That's really more to the maps themselves than the killer, but it's pretty much as good as it can get. His add-ons can be disgustingly good, or basically nothing, but swing chains, things like that, swing chains, paintbrush, those can be very, very annoying to deal with, especially on slowdown builds, the whole Forever Freddy thing, so his slowdown build is quite annoying. Overall, it's an 8.55 for Freddy, which is one of the best killers in the game, which I guess makes sense, actually. Next is going to be the Pig. Pig's map control is fairly average. The only reason it's not lower, she has no teleportation or movement speed ability whatsoever. However, she does have additional benefits from her traps, which keep people off generators. So it is a form of map pressure, despite the fact she's not actually getting places. She's keeping people off gens by nature of having the traps active. So it's a bit better than just the default. Her downing potential is fairly average. She can use her dash on some loops if she's got like straps and tape on, the add-ons. But for the most part, her dash is not very good on the longer loops. It doesn't do that much. You end up wasting more time. Sometimes they can just leave the loop entirely. So her downing potential is not anything special at all. But you know, she's got stealth, so it's better than the average, I would say. It's better than the default. Her snowball potential can be actually surprisingly decent if you've got multiple active traps on. It'll have survivors be less inclined to go for saves. So someone might stay on a hook longer, someone might stay slugged longer. People are less inclined to help other people if they got a ticking time bomb on their head. So she can actually snowball fairly decently because survivors are less inclined to help during that time. Her map versatility is a smack dab in the middle. Big maps really are kind of both good and bad for her. Bad because, you know, just big maps are bad for every killer, but they can be kind of good too because survivors have to run longer distances to open traps. But the placement of the boxes is also... I had to put this average because the box placement is very random, and it could be... You could get really unlucky, and there could be a box 2 feet away from you that gets the trap off, so... There's so much RNG, I don't even know how to quantify this number. I'm just going to put it as an average. Her add-on strength is actually incredibly good. If you add an additional box and you throw in a tampered timer and you get some good luck with those traps, holy balls, that's toxic. That is extremely strong. But you have to have some luck there, so it's not like a 9 or a 10. So overall, she's a 6.37. Next is the Clown, I think the worst killer in the game. Map control is a 3. He has nothing to do anything, really. He just walks around, he just waddles. The only reason it's not even like a 2 is because he doesn't start off slow or anything like that, and he can technically throw a bottle, like, you know, at the top of a jungle gym, rain it down on the gen, and might scare the survivors off the gen for a couple seconds. So he has a thing to do. But for the most part, he just waddles his fat ass around. His downing potential is pretty average. A Clown with even decent add-ons can down someone fairly decently at a loop, provided they don't drop the pallet. However, if they drop the pallet early, there's not much he can do about it. So snowball potential is virtually non-existent. He just has to throw a bottle, hit them, chase, throw a bottle, hit them, chase. He just has to hit people twice. There's no way to speed up that process at all. Map versatility, he's pretty decent on most maps. Maps that block a line of sight, like Larry's and stuff like that, are rough, but he can do kind of decently on most maps. His add-on strength is actually pretty good, though. Pinky Finger is not bad at all. His Bleach is very good, combined with the increased duration, can make his power actually kind of scary. But his default is just hilariously bad. So his add-ons do make him a bit more of a threat, but overall, 5.22 because he's a pretty sad killer. Spirit, map control is a 7. It is not lower because she can use her power to get places very fast. However, it's not higher because if she does that, she won't have her power for a chase in it for a little bit of time. So it would suck away from the whole downing potential, which I think is a 10. Spirit's one of the few killers in the game that can down a survivor regardless of their resources and regardless of how good they are at the game very fast, provided Spirit's good. and has Strider. Snowball potential, because of how fast she can down people and the fact that she can travel very fast, it is fairly high. It's not like insanely high, but she can end games quite fast by chaining downs together, just due to the nature of a relatively short power cooldown and the fact that it almost guarantees hits when you use it. Her map versatility is extremely high as well. Really, the only thing that hurts her are very, very large maps. She can do well on every other map in the game other than like Ormond, because she can't even see scratch marks, but that's just Ormond being shit. Her add-ons are quite good. They're not like a 9 or a 10 anymore ever since they nerfed the amulet and like the, Wakazashi and all that stuff. But she still has some pretty damn good add-ons that make her very, very scary. So definitely one of the best killers in the game. She's a 9.37. Legion's map control is a 5. It's a bit higher than normal because he can at least know where a lot of people are nearby, which gives him information, which gets people off gens because he can run towards them. Mending keeps you off gens for a little bit, but other than that, it's not anything special. He just sort of has to run around. The frenzy doesn't make you go that much faster, so it's not very amazing for map control. His downing potential is quite bad. He can only just get you into the mending state, but then after that, at some point, he's got to chase you without a power. He's got to chase you as a basic killer with absolutely nothing to help him with loops. So that can be kind of bad. So his downing potential is actually quite bad. His spreading injury pressure is good, but his downing potential is awful. His snowball potential, again, is also pretty low, too. You can't really snowball very well. Just because someone's injured doesn't mean you're going to get a free hit on them. Whereas with other killers like, Wraith, you could actually snowball technically better because you can sneak up on them and get a hit before they have a chance to react. With Legion, they can see you coming and just start looping the Legion before they can really do anything. Map versatility, however, is pretty good. Legion can do well on pretty much every map in the game. So that's a 9. Add-on strength is a 7. Like the mending blades can be very annoying. Iridescent buttons, cool. Legion's got some pretty decent add-ons, to be fair. That can make him a bit less pathetic. But overall, Legion is definitely one of the weaker killers in the game at a 6.22. Plague's map control is 5. Again, no movement ability of any kind. However, she can make you more hesitant to work on gens by getting sick on them, which would make you sick, which shortens further chases because you become injured, or gives her Corrupt Purge later. So she does build some pressure off of that. However, a lot of survivors can just say, I don't care, and just work on the gen anyway, so it's not a guarantee or anything like that. Her damage, or her downing potential, is pretty good. She can one-shot people, assuming she's right next to him, kind of like a Billy's back row of this chainsaw. And she has Corrupt Purge, which is quite good, but it's not a guaranteed thing, and it's a timed thing, and it's only up to the survivors to even give you that to begin with. If she could activate it at will, other than the one she gets at the start, this would probably be like a 7. But because it's a limited thing that the survivors mostly control, I gave it a 6. However, her snowball potential is quite high because when she does have Corrupt Purge, if people are nearby, she can destroy teams very, very fast. A Plague with Infectious Fright and Corrupt Purge is absolutely terrifying, as I'm sure many of you could attest. Her map versatility is good. She can do well on most maps. I can't think of anything that severely hinders her, other than indoor maps and maps with lots of tight corners and hallways, Hawkins, Larry's, the usual indoor maps, things like that. Can't get a steady stream of her stuff going. Hard to hit Corrupt Purges when there's lots of corners, things like that. Overall, though, she's good on most maps. Her add-ons can be quite good. The emetics are very, very, very good. Black Incense is also extremely good. But she has nothing truly game-breaking, in my opinion. I think her best add-on is her Black Incense, which gives you basically global Nurse's Calling. But as you can see with Object of Obsession, just because you know where a survivor is doesn't necessarily mean you can do anything about it. So it's good, but not game-breaking, in my opinion. Ghostface has pretty much no map control at all. He just walks around. That's about it. He doesn't have any way to stop people from doing gens other than hitting them. So his map control, I think, is actually quite low. However, his downing potential is fairly high. Stalking is fairly broken, so even if you're looking right at him, he can still stalk you to expose very, very fast, especially if he's leaning, so he can end chases before they even really begin. The stealth helps with that as well. His snowball potential, because of the stealth and the potential one-shot, is decent. It's not exactly as good as Myers, in my opinion. I think Myers can snowball a bit better because he can one-shot multiple people, where you can technically do that on Ghostface, but you have to perfectly 99 each one of them, which is significantly harder to do and a lot more circumstantial. His map versatility is pretty decent. He's good on most maps. Again, he suffers on the maps that most stealth killers do, like Rotten Fields and Blood Lodge and things like that, but for the most part, he is decent on most maps. His add-on strength is pretty good because his cooldown reduction, I think, takes away, 16 seconds if you stack them, so it basically halves the cooldown of his power, which is pretty damn nuts. So overall, he's a 7.03. Demogorgon. Map control is a 6. He mostly just runs around, but however, he can, teleport whenever he wants. Not whenever he wants. It's not a cooldown. He can teleport on a cooldown and get pretty much across the map, which is very, very nice. His downing potential is decent. It's not amazing. His ability to zone for free with his power is quite good, but it's still, is at the mercy of what the loop is shaped like. If it is round, he can't exactly curve around it, but he destroys basic tiles like Shack and some jungle gyms by being able to lunge directly to the window and things like that. So his downing potential is actually pretty decent. His snowball potential is fairly decent too, because of how quickly he can down people at certain areas. He can cross distances pretty fast. He can down someone, teleport to a gen basically that he has a trap on, and then start more pressure there. But he still has to hit them twice. Typically, a lot of Demogorgons run Save the Best for Last, which I almost want to include in this, because that increases his snowball potential drastically, but I'm trying not to mention perks and things like that. Map versatility, he's pretty standard on most maps. He's not amazing on any maps, and he's not really super terrible on any map, so he's fairly adaptable. I can't think of any maps that severely hurt him. Again, the indoor maps for the lunges, you can't really lunge when there's lots of tight corners and things like that, so the indoor maps hurt him quite a bit, but other than that, he's not super bad on any map. Add-ons are not super impactful. His common and uncommon add-ons are honestly his best, and they are pretty good, but there's nothing super amazing or game-breaking about any of his add-ons, which it's not a bad thing, but that's just how it is. Demo is a 6.92. Oni is a 6 in map control, and it's both higher and lower. It's lower because at the beginning he's got nothing to do, he just runs around. However, it's a lot higher when his power's up because he can go zoom and turn around corners and shit. So it's a lot higher and a lot lower. I average it out from a 4 to an 8 to just to a 6. Damage potential, or I'm sorry, downing potential. I'm losing my mind, dude. I've recorded so many videos in the past 2 hours. Downing potential is like an 8. It would be probably a 9 or a 10 if he didn't have to achieve his power to begin with. But once his power's up, I believe he has the strongest power in the entirety of the game. So it ranges from like a 6 to a 10 for me. It's actually more of like a 5 to a 10. So I guess a 7 would be more fair. But honestly, his power is absolutely insane. So I'm going to give him an 8 there. Snowball potential, one of the best in the game as well. He can instantly kill an entire team with his power in a matter of seconds, especially if you have Infectious Fright. It's extremely hard to dodge him when he's in his power, so if you're all nearby, he can end the team in a blink of an eye. One of the best snowbally killers in the game by far. That's his whole shtick. Map versatility, he's good on most maps. I can't really think of any maps that hurt him other than like Hawkins and Batham Preschool and like Haddonfield. Anything that's got like a lot of windows or sharp turns, he can't do a 180. He can do 90-degree turns, but he can't do 180-degree turns, so those can hurt him a bit, but overall, he's good on most maps. His add-ons can be absolutely insane. Scalp Top Knot is nuts. Lion Fang is extremely good. Even the Crutch is good. The increased blood orb drop is good. A lot of his add-ons are insanely good. So I'm giving him an 8 there, which leaves him at 8.53, which is pretty damn good. Deathslinger, map control, basically non-existent. The only reason I give it a bit higher map control is because he can technically get into range and shoot people off gens before they have a chance to do anything. So people have to be a bit more hesitant, and they have to pay more attention, especially if he has Monitor. He can snag people off gens very, very easily, almost as if he was a stealth killer. And he has a little bit of range, so it's not like a 0 in that. But for the most part, he's a slow killer that has to walk around everywhere. However, his downing potential is quite good. He can down even the best survivors. His zoning is absolutely free. He zones simply by existing. He can down people at most loops, even more so than Huntress. Even if they drop the pallet early, you can simply run around the loop once, get them to the unsafe side, and then just chain them around it. So the whole drop the pallet early thing only buys you a couple of extra seconds. It's kind of a fallacy people make when talking about countering Deathslinger. His snowball potential is not anything amazing. He still has to hit them and reel them in and then hit them again. So although he's guaranteed to hit people fairly consistently, it still takes a bit of time. So he can't necessarily snowball that well unless everyone's very grouped up. His versatility, though, he's good on almost every map in the game. He's good on indoor maps even because his basically non-existent terror radius, so he can function as a stealth killer. And then he's good on wide open maps because then he can just shoot you. So I'd say he's one of the most versatile killers in the game. He's good on almost every map. His add-ons are fairly impactful. If you stack the reload add-ons, it's pretty damn good. Shoot, reel them in, hit, reload in a second, shoot them again before they're even out of range. Pretty damn good. So overall, Deathslinger's a 7.38. And finally, Executioner. His map control is a 5 because he still has to walk everywhere. However, he can save a bit of time with his, cage. So that is nice. But overall, he still has to walk places to begin to threaten areas. And in fact, sometimes he can lose map pressure by sending people to a cage when there are survivors nearby because they save them basically for free. So you got to be smart with that stuff, and it can be a mixed bag. His downing potential is quite good. He gets free zoning at pallets by just sort of dropping his stuff and just running through it. They drop it, he obviously lets his power go and he hits them. If they don't drop it, he runs through it, and then he just M1s you. So his downing potential is fairly consistent, fairly uncounterable in certain circumstances, and it's quite good. Snowball potential is not anything amazing. He's consistent at getting hits, but he still has to walk somewhere and he still has to hit people twice, so it is not anything amazing. Only example of some snowballing is hitting multiple people at once when they're doing an unhook and downing 2 people at once. But even then, you gotta worry about the first person having iframes from getting unhooked, so it's not, not very consistent. However, he's pretty good on most maps. He can shoot through walls, so even having walls in the way, tight corners and stuff is not very impactful. He's good on almost every loop in the game, so the map that he's on doesn't matter very much at all. Big maps hurt him because he has no map control, but other than that, he's pretty good on most maps. His add-ons are not too impactful. Some of them are kind of nice quality of life things, but for the most part, like his iridescence and stuff, they're not super amazing, so give him a 6 there, which lands him at a 7.23. So the overall order, based on all of this, makes it Nurse, Spirit, Freddy, Oni, Hillbilly, Huntress, Hag, Doctor, Deathslinger, Executioner, Plague, Ghostface, Demogorgon, Wraith, Trapper, Shape, Leatherface, Pig, Legion, and Clown. That is what the formula churned out when I tried to make sense of it. I suppose that would be the order I list the killer strength in. I'm not going to make tiers because I don't do this stuff is all subjective. I don't see a point into doing it. I just wanted to actually apply a fairly accurate formula to all the killers in the game and explain why. I didn't want to go over for an hour this time. This one's only 17 minutes because I already kind of did this already. I just wanted to simplify it even more, make it more clear how I came to some decisions, and refine the formula a bit more so it makes it a little bit more sense. But overall, that is it. I'm never making another video like this ever again in my entire life. I'm going to go die now. Goodbye.